Happy Monday. Happy full moon in Capricorn. Hi Valley, how are you? Holy days, holidays, spellcast days, they're all just days to me. So for anybody who is new to my channel, welcome to my living room. Welcome to my pretty pink sheepskin. Welcome to my comfort, where I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and hopefully that empowers you to be the best version of you. You are meant to be. You are meant to be. And you are. Period. It's just a lot of times we haven't claimed our power. So really what we're in, and the whole universe is going through this, the whole world, the whole humanity, the collective consciousness, it's a collective collaboration, you know. We're all going through shifts and changes and rumblings and just blah. It's really like, hello, have you been paying attention? Or are you just going through the motions in habits and routines and patterns that you haven't broken? Because we're all under the spell, and we all know it well, that humanity has been conditioned and programmed into being a certain way. There are certain phrases that people repeat like parrots. Well, it's always been that way, you know. You know, the old patriarchy, the old paradigm of if you don't do it for yourself, nobody will ever do it for you. If you don't, you know, no good work, nothing comes without good hard work, you know. This to get along, you got to go along. It's all BS. Belief systems. And the other BS too. Because ultimately, if we're not confronting ourselves, we're going to find the world outside of us will confront us for us. What we don't acknowledge in ourselves, it appears outside of us. We magnetize and attract our frequency, our energy, right back to us. Everything we complain about is really something about ourselves. It all starts with self. Woof. Like it's like a humble pie every time you recognize, oh shit, that's me too. I am that too. Like the more you start to say every time you see something, whether you like it or you dislike it, repeat to yourself, and I am that too. Yeah, because it is a big ouchie. It is salt in our own wounds, but it's humbling. Instead of judging another, recognize the other is you. See that mirror and go, I am that too. I have been there. I have done that at some point, whether in this lifetime or another. It's so easy to point a finger and not recognize the loaded gun that you are waving, that you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. How humbling that is. Your past, your present, and your future are all there for you. We are not the judge and jury of one another, though we have been conditioned to think that's okay because we have a cult of personalities, a society that basically spanks us into this belief system of, oh, you know, righteousness is doing the best and being the best and competing to be the best. See that person? I'm better than them. See how they're behaving? Yeah, that I can do better than that. Like, why are we comparing ourselves? It's because we're insecure. The only time you go outside of yourself, you outsource your energy, your power, you point finger out, that's basically waving a wand. And it's giving your power away to whatever you're wielding it at. So when you go out in the world and you look at other people and you judge them, you're just comparing yourself. The average person doesn't recognize your judgment is a comparison because that's all you know, all you've been taught. Conscious or unconscious, what you see is what you got. You spot it, you got it. If you recognize something in another person, it's because you're projecting it out. And in some cases, the story you create around who and what is around you and what they're doing is often not even the truth of the situation. But what you've done is placed yourself there because you're comparing yourself and projected yourself onto that person. That's what judgment truly is. But the average person doesn't want to say that's what it is. I was having a conversation with a friend the past couple days, back and forth about certain things. I said, listen, you know why I see things? Because I see myself in those things. I've done it. I recognize that because I know I've done it. But I don't let it do me. I don't let it own me. So it's really easy for me to look around myself and go, ooh, I see that. Why? Because that is me. I know that was me. And if you own it, it won't own you. The more willing you are to claim it, it won't rule over you. It won't be your motivator. It won't be your driver, your blind, unconscious driver, because we are all operating from the levels of which we were programmed from our younger years up to this point. You don't know better until you know better. And when you know better, you can do better. So, of course, we're all trying to peel away layers of conditioning and peel away the curtain to our authenticity and being vulnerable, because that in itself, that's an expression of love, is letting other people see you in your authenticity, in your vulnerability. That's also integrity. I'm not saying you have to go out and say, look at me, I'm such a sinner. Oh, I've done all these horrible things. Oh, look at me, I won and I'm doing this and I'm da-da-da-da. It's not for you to declare or to get recognition from the external. That's for you. I've had to work through some of this myself, because one of my things has been around being seen for who I am. But I know that's about me seeing me as I am. It's also acknowledging that the story that I have also had, that my core wound around being dropped, about people overpromising and not delivering, I'm clearing and cleansing that out. The only people that show up to me now are the ones who are receptive. The ones that not just receive from me, but return something to me. Because this is the thing about life. There has to be equal energy exchange. And so many people are convinced, money is bad and that's expensive, which is translation is, I'm not worth it. So there's this elephant in the room around, earning money for your services or your time or your energy. We need to stop playing into the victim mindset, because putting money down is also putting down your value. It's rationalizing the reason you don't receive an equal exchange for your energy is because you don't feel valuable. So it's easier to turn around and say money is evil. It's just a tool. It's not evil. People do evil things with it, yes. But see, again, it's intentionality. What is your intention behind what you do with the money, and how you receive it as well? Receiving it with gratitude, appreciation, is what earns interest. See the languaging, see the cast of the spells. When you learn how words are used to cast the spell, to create your story, to create your life, then you start to recognize how important it is to choose your words wisely. That when you use, oh, but it's so hard, you're basically putting a lead weight on your shoulders. Anytime you're telling a story about the exhaustion, the heaviness of it's hard, oh, I don't, you know what I mean? Those stories are what are creating your resistance and your obstacles. The stories are what keep us small. And so foundationally, where we're at in the world, and with these these beautiful energies that are stirring the pot, bringing all our stuff up to the surface, are all about you seeing it so you can, again, feel it to reveal it so you can actually heal it. Because when there's a trigger, when there's an old pattern that keeps on poking and provoking you, it's because it wants to move through you. And 9 times out of 10, the average person who's still struggling and suffering, they'll say, I don't want to feel pain. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You're still holding on to the energy of that pain. The resistance of letting go is actually you clenching on and not wanting to release it, not allowing it to go. Energy is supposed to stay in motion. And with that motion, you are freed up to feel lighter and to flow. That's the way we're supposed to move and go. So again, and then you say things like, it's not always easy. It's not easy. So you create, again, a block that goes, okay, we're going to make the next one harder. Because we attract that energy to us. So if we say it's not easy or it's not always easy, like my mother used to, she would stop us with, give me an example. When you say always, you make it sound like it's all the time. And if that's the case, give me examples to back up your claims. And then, of course, when you say things like that, you go, I guess it isn't always if I can only think of 1 or 2 times. It's just the way the mind is playing into the victim's story, right? How many of us have done that? You say that all the time. You always do this. Like, you got to be careful about that stuff because you're going to create more of it. And you imprison yourself and other people when you start casting these word spells. So it's really important that we choose our words well so that we don't end up under our own spell. If you want to cast a spell, start to choose the words that empower you. They uplift you. Change your story. Even if it's not the true story, start saying the story you want. Because the only way we shift and we change things is by rebuilding our foundation. And that starts with our belief systems. It's about establishing our own trust of self, creating self-confidence, overcoming limitations. But we have to confront the stories within our minds. So going back to these conversations I was having with another person around the fact that what I have noticed, people reach out to me when they need counseling, coaching, mentorship. They don't actually recognize, and I really need to stop doing this. I'm just going to put this out there, that when I do it, they often don't appreciate it because there's no equal exchange. If I am offering you free advice, that's taking time away from my day and my life and things that are also important in my life. And so it's taken for granted that I respond because I'm a reliable person. And so it is taken for granted on that note. And I'm very well aware of that. So noticing when you reach out for somebody, how do you really want their consultation? Because I have to also recognize that people will ask for advice, they'll ask for suggestions. And then when I give it to them and I later check in and say, how's that going for you? Oh, well, I feel the same as I did before. Well, have you been doing this? Well, I haven't done that in a long time. It was one of the things I offered and suggested you do. Journaling is a great example. It's very cathartic. It is getting it out of your head, taking the lead weight out and putting it on paper so it's not like stuck in your cellular memory, in your mental memory. It is not affecting you to the same degree, because then you start to put it on paper and other things start to come out as a result. This is the irony, that really when you reach out to other people, it's your fear of going within. It is also your neglect of doing the work for yourself. That's an ouchie in itself, is like you want to outsource to someone else, but that's not taking personal responsibility and accountability. That's insisting that someone tell you what you should do. But so many people, they profess to not like that. They don't want people to tell them what to do. Yet they're constantly asking others for advice that they won't necessarily follow either. Like, it's wasted energy and like it's vomit. You know, sometimes people just are stuck in their stories and they want to be enabled in them, so they just want to waste someone else's time and tell the story. I've done it. I'm one. I have the t-shirt kind of deal. You know what I'm saying? So when you see what is described as a flaw in yourself, how do you change it? Well, is it really a flaw? You need to confront that as well. Like, you've labeled it, so you limited it. Is it really a flaw, or is it there to teach you? If you see and notice a pattern of behavior, there's usually a reason for having that pattern or behavior or that belief. It has served you. It has served you for a good period of your time. That's how it becomes a habit, a routine, and it becomes a part of who you are. So until you actually confront it and go, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of it that reinforces it? Because again, but addictive behavior is because you're getting at least 3 of the basic human needs met. That constitutes an addiction. When you get reinforced in your victimhood story or your behaviors or whatever it is, people tolerate it or put up with it or allow you to do it, so they enable you. Nobody ever calls you out on it. That's up to you. I mean, somebody might call you out on it. And at that point, you're like, well, what's the problem? I don't understand why you're calling me out on this. Nobody else has had a problem with it, because maybe that other person, that person calling you out, has boundaries, has limitations that they don't let others impose upon them. But it can also be someone who cares enough to say, hey, you're being an asshole right now, and I'm just letting you know. I love you that much. You know, tough love. So there's all these different various ways that it could show up. It could even show up from somebody you don't know that makes you go, ooh, ooh, ooh. Hadn't seen it that way. And 9 times out of 10, people will take feedback and criticism from unknown sources better than they will from someone they've known forever, especially family. Because there's the rub with family that's like, people just kind of like want you to stay the same. And so family doesn't always give you an opportunity to be seen as you are, but as you have been. And vice versa. We do the same to our family members. So we have to really check in with our own criticism, our own, again, judgment, because again, we're comparing. We're comparing ourselves. We're comparing the other person. Comparison is judgment. Judgment is a form of comparison. Now, you can observe somebody and you can recognize patterns without being judgmental or attacking or criticizing. This is where discernment comes in. And the reason I say discernment is because maybe you witness somebody in their, not their best behavior, and you realize, wow, you know, like the way I do it, like, here's how I see and observe this individual from a perspective that I have been that person. Again, you have to kind of own your shit to be able to see the shit around you. Not saying shit's bad, by the way. I'm just saying that it's a reflection that in order to recognize something, you have to have been just like that or around an environment that has made you hyper aware to your surroundings. So I, of course, you know, always have like little notes that I've been taking throughout the course of the past couple of days. And I observe, you know, like I said, I've had some people reaching out to me, checking, you know, hey, what's going on? I'm like really flipping out. I just feel this way, that way. And I'm like, Well, I'll tell you what, you're not alone. The world is going through like the pancake flip. Here, let's see what happens when we throw you up in the air. Are you going to flip out? Because again, most people don't want to feel bad. They want to reject the bad, and they want to find and search and seek and select and choose what they want to feel. That's not how this works. Doing the work, the healing, the shadow work, the inner child work, reclaiming your power, all of that requires your participation, not your checking out, not your escapism. And I'm watching a lot of escapism. I'm watching a lot of people abandon ship because it's too hard, because I don't like this, because it's easier to go back to my old ways of being. And the times that we're in right now, going back to your old ways isn't necessarily going to work out so well for you, but that's your lesson. Hey, I don't want to do it either. And I understand the trepidation of going forward into the unknown, the uncharted territory, the unfamiliar waters. Why? Because we don't know. And the mind is lazy. Let me tell you about the mind and its laziness. It chooses what it's familiar with. It chooses, it will go to what it knows first, instead of considering what's coming in is for its highest and best good. Again, comparison. The mind goes into the memory bank of, the last time, or it could be, and if remember, it feels like, and it doesn't really feel, by the way. That's the body. It's like your mind starts checking in with all these worst case scenarios. It rarely ever stops to think about the best case scenarios. That's up to you to check it. To go, hey, wait a minute here. We got reel that stuff in. But see, that's where the awareness is key. So we've been programmed to think the worst, but we can reprogram that. The key to reprogram anything in our life is really being in awareness of it. You got to make the unconscious conscious, which is why, again, meditation is so powerful, why journaling is important, why having conversations sometimes out loud with yourself in the mirror, actually confronting your own shit, your own BS, your belief systems. Like, why do I think that? Why would I go there? Why would I think that worst case scenario? So like, notice the internal trepidation and apprehension, acknowledge it, challenge it, confront it. I wrote this down. I see you, and I appreciate what you do to protect me. But what are the best case scenarios? Let's focus more on being more creative than falling back into old stories and patterns just because those are familiar. If we don't set a new precedence and we just keep falling back, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of crazy, because that's all that is going back into the old, let me go back in my cave. Let me be the cave woman. Let me be the cave man. Do what's familiar. Might not be comfortable, but at least I know it. I already know what I'm going to get out of it. And the funny part is, I think I can get something different each time I think I'm going to be able to do that. Okay. So it's about being in awareness that when it arises, when that trepidation, when that internal freak out is happening, because here's what happens. When everything seems to be spinning out of control, try to find a way to ground yourself from the manic panic bubbling up in you. Whenever we feel like the earth is about to open up beneath us and swallow us whole, that's when the mind gets in a panic because it wants to maintain control. If the mind can't maintain control, it will put you into all the freak out of the stories. Again, that's usually when I go to the gym. It's when I take a walk. It's when I move my body. And why? Because you got to shake it up to shift it out. because the body is how we move energy. And if the mind is left to its devices, it will create every worst case scenario. And that's not healthy for your body. Your body starts going into pains and jerks and freakouts because, again, the body is the tattletale on the mind. So that's where all of a sudden the body's starting to feel like all these flutters and all this twinges of pain and itchy bitchy shit. All the itchy bitchiness is because the mind is concocting untruths. They're all illusions. None of it's real. And the body's going, no! Kinesiology testing. That's what your body's doing. It's telling you, doesn't work, it's not true. But the mind will keep on going like a hamster wheel if you let it. If you leave your mind to its devices, you might be reaching for vices, especially got addicts out there. I'm just, we all have addictions. Notice where, when you feel uncomfortable, you reach for food because you got a mood. You're in a mood, you reach for some food, and the food reinforces the mood. You got to check that stuff. We all do things like that. I do it. We're human. And give yourself a little grace, a little love, that your heart and your soul is so precious that sometimes calling yourself out, that tough love mama on yourself, or papa, whatever you got to be, is really about acknowledging, oh, I see a slip up coming. I can catch this, or I can just go with it. Neither one is wrong. It's the awareness of it that gives you the opportunity to learn from it, to grow from it, to shift out of it. Sure, we slip up here and there in life. That's a part of learning. And if you didn't know, success always comes with many failures. But there is no such thing as failure or mistakes. You know why? Because they're just choices. And you always have an opportunity to make a new choice. Hence why choices are your superpower. That is really about reclaiming your power. That when you notice, I'm not happy with the choices I made up to this point. I got a special one for you. Surprise! Make another choice. That's your magic. That's your medicine. Take it with a spoonful of sugar, whatever you got to do. But remind yourself that you are the creator of your life. You can always make a new choice. Okay, I'm not happy here. I'll go over there. Whatever it is, just do it. So we've been programmed, again, to think the worst. But it's in that awareness that we can reprogram it. And when we're making conscious choices, the ones where we're paying attention, not habitual, just doing to do, that's when we have the choice to shift. A conscious choice to shift is when the universe and the stars align and the clouds open up and the angels start singing to support you in the direction that you're willing and wanting to go. Haven't you noticed? Your life becomes a flow when you choose. When you choose. Sometimes I've done it. I've put my foot down. I'm like, and then all of a sudden everything aligns. And everything is like, oh, here you go. Wow. I can count countless times it's happened. Maybe I don't even always remember the times, but I can tell you, I feel pretty darn blessed about my life. I mean, I had a car accident. And then I realized I ended up feeling something wrong with my breast implants. And then all of a sudden I had x-rays. And then all of a sudden I was finding out that I had a rupture. Talk about the timing. It worked out in my favor and for my own health. It's little things like that. Like sometimes we forget the inconvenience here created a doorway open over here. It may not have seemed that way at the time. Again, I can attest that every physical situation, every breakdown in my body has been the biggest shift for my growth. My having to go in for the appendectomy was like, okay, I have to get out of this relationship that I'm in because it is not healthy for me. These are the things, again, the body will always tell on the mind if you can tap into and confront and figure it out. Because we have our blueprint right here. You know, I talk about decoding ourselves. It's getting to know yourself from the inside out. You know you're intuitive. You're a hypersensitive being. Hello, we all are. We all have psychic abilities. We all have five senses. And those five senses, when we're heightening them, we tune into them, they heighten our intuition. And the more into me I see, the more intimacy I have with myself, the more ability I have to also recognize everything else. But decoding, astrology, human design, gene codes, numerology, cards of destiny, Enneagram, what's that other one with Myers-Briggs? Like, there's infinite modalities out there that you can tap into and learn about yourself. The more you get to know thyself, now you know your strengths, your weaknesses, where you need to work on things. It even gives you, basically, it's all like a handbook. We don't have the human handbook. Here you go. This is how you're supposed to live life. Everybody's always asking, what is my purpose? What is my path? It's all in there. It's in you. It's crazy cool. But so many people just don't want to get to know themselves. They want somebody else to tell them. And then when you do tell them, they're like, nah, that's not right. It's like the definition of crazy again, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So no matter what is going on in your life, you got all the answers inside of you. You don't even need to outsource and ask others. You may need to for a while, but you should never become codependent, dependent upon another, explaining you to you. Yes, I listen to astrology and I use it as kind of, for me, because I find astrology like an energetic weather forecast. And I get what's the pulse on the collective today? What am I feeling? What am I noticing? Whatever drops in, and then I listen to the astrology. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It validates exactly what I was feeling and sensing. Something's in the air. It's like pea soup. There's tension and everybody's freaking out, right? Solar activity, Schumann resonance is going off. The earth is rumbling under our feet. Our sun's getting blocked. Like, there's some crazy shit going on in the world. And guess what? Where attention goes, energy flows. Where does your attention go? What triggers you? What do you pay attention to? Are you using it as a distraction from doing the work, looking within? Because that's really common, especially right now. Well, if I don't look inside, and maybe, let me go hang out with other people. I don't like to be alone, If I hang out with other people, they'll make me feel better about myself. And then they go and hang out with other people and they just go home going, oh, that was a bad idea. They just made me feel worse. If you can't be good with you, what makes you think you can be good with others too? Or have others make you feel better about yourself? Other than, yes, there will be people in your life. I'd like to believe that you have a circle of friends that go, you are such a beautiful soul and I love you. And if you ask them, what are my strengths? What is it about me that you feel, that you see that I may not see myself? That's always a great thing to do too, is to ask your besties, ask the people closest to you. What do you see are my best qualities? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Okay, that's a scary one, weaknesses. Where do you think I could improve? Be open and don't cringe. Because guess what? We all got something. We got a little cringe. We got a lot of love. We got a lot of joy. We got a lot of strengths. We have some weaknesses too. And you can focus on strengthening the weaknesses too. So if someone gives you that information, don't poo-poo on it. Don't reject it. accept it and allow it and be grateful that someone's willing enough and loves you enough to tell you the truth. Because that's love, is seeing you as you are and still being there with you, witnessing you, appreciating you. I love that, Valley. Your hubby says you're perfect. Now, you can say that's not helpful, but just ask him specifically, what is he referring to in your perfection? Let him list things. You have to get them to be specific, because if they're general, that's also kind of an avoidance. That's an avoidance of any conflict. Now, that's probably because he comes from old school where a happy wife means a happy life. So he's not going to turn around and you're not going to say, honey, do I look fat in these pants? And he's going to go, yeah, you do. No, he's going to tell you the best thing, right? That kind of deal. That's the way I would interpret that. But I would also like to think that you have a relationship where you're like, honey, you got to tell me. You got to check me because I got to check you. That's what the whole irony of, not irony, the blessing of a relationship, a sacred union between two people is that both of them are there to enhance and to lift the other up when they're down. Like, to me, relationship is sacred. And if you're in a relationship with somebody, it should be a collaboration, not a competition. But a lot of people don't realize their relationships are actually combative. They're actually competing with them. Now the question is how aware both parties are of that in themselves and in the other. I've witnessed it in myself with other people, and I've also witnessed it in other people that I was in relationship with. It makes it helpful to, again, own your ish. So, when we make a conscious choice to shift our thinking from the negative worst case scenario to more creative best case scenario, we're creating the new stories that form neural pathways. And the more we do that, again, repetition is the key to perfection, progress making perfection. Actually, practice makes progress. Perfection is not the end game. It's not even about perfection. Like that was not meant to be part of that. But it's to make growth. It's for you to evolve, to be the best version of yourself, which to me is the version of perfection, is the best you in the moment. That's perfectly and authentically you. Not perfect in the sense of never had any mistakes, never, perfection that is unattainable. Like, I don't believe in the unattainable, which the way that we have been conditioned is that nobody can ever attain perfection, but yet everybody seeks it. That's a Jedi mind trick if there ever was one. So we can't change unless we're willing to address our patterns, and we can't know our patterns if we mindlessly operate from the unconscious, because that's why we slow down and meditate. We slow down to meditate, to witness the program, the constant monkey mind going on that hamster wheel. We want to make that unconscious conscious. That's what meditation is, a single-minded focus. Okay, and then it goes off on a train of thought, which it does. It's meant to, because that's the program. It shows, wow, I have a hard time sitting here and allowing the thought to continue to move and pass through, like the clouds. You see it. Oh, I see you. Okay. Well, sometimes you do need to confront it, like, what's that all about? Okay. Why did I have that dream last night? It keeps coming up. The same theme. That kind of deal. So to make the unconscious conscious is the key to meditation, and becoming aware of our patterns and program. That's how we become aware, is sitting with that crap. Like, ugh, here we go again. Meditation isn't always fun. It's not designed to be like, all blissed out in samadhi and quiet. Yeah, no, that's just not how it works. I'm here to tell you, shadow work, inner child healing, all that stuff. you have to confront and witness it. You have to be present with it, because that's where your power is. And that's also where the growth happens, is in the discomfort of like, oh, dang, I forgot about that. That memory. Ooh. When you did something bad, or when something bad was done to you, like all that stuff's going to come up too at some point. That's again why I journal. So basically you have to reverse engineer yourself and your life and recognize how it all started in your formative years. And it ends up rooted in our belief systems, our BS. Because we believe that the stories or the things that happen to us, the experiences we have, are some sort of story that will continue to repeat itself. Like, there's an unconscious program that runs that goes, well, because this happened, it'll happen again. Right? Anybody out there relate to that statement? If it happened once, it'll happen again. Because I think there was a Murphy's Law that said, when worst case scenario will always end up like, there's so many like old paradigms, old proverbs, bullshit story things that people repeated that somehow lodged in our memory, and we just held on to it like, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's real. That's true. No, it's not. No, it's not. And it's really not self-sabotage. It's just, it's, we have to be in self-awareness. The sabotage part isn't that we sabotage ourselves. It's just that we don't let go. We cling onto things because they're familiar, because we want to be comforted by the known rather than traversing and stepping into the unknown. We just, it's just a holding back or a letting go, one or the other. We're either expanding or contracting at all times. Inhale, exhale. So, breathing, of course, is one of the best ways to bring yourself into the present. That's an obvious one. Slow down the breathing. You can do box breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, out, exhale for 4, hold out for 4. You can left nostril breathing, which is to calm the mind, because left nostril breathing is the moon side. It's all about cooling, calming, claiming yourself. You can also do Sitali Pranayama, which is one of my favorites, the curled tongue. And exhaling out the nose. Slow inhale through the tongue, slow exhale out the nose. Nobody needs to rush. If you're rushing, then you're not being present. You're already hijacked into some other place. So the breath, again, especially when you're counting, or you have a mantra, something, again, meditation is single-minded focus. So breathing and having a mantra or even just counting is one way to keep you present in the moment. Now, because you want to be present, because that's where your power resides, in the here and now, we want to slow down to witness the mind, that hamster wheel of thoughts that cycle through it. Because when you change your thoughts, you can change your life. And like I like to say, master your breath, because when you slow it down, you become present with the mind, allows you to see the patterns, that you can master the mind. And when you master the mind, you can master your life and master your entire domain. And so again, we are here to overcome limitations and to build self-confidence. And the best way to do that is to get to know thyself. If you don't get to know thyself, you're going to outsource to others. And if you can't trust yourself, what makes you think you're going to trust the right person to give your power away to tell you what you should do? Great little examples. For example, I used to be an aerobics instructor. I've done all sorts of fitness instruction from when I was in the military, way back when, from jazzercise to step aerobics to regular aerobics to Pilates to yoga to kickboxing is one of my favorites, by the way. I used to teach that. And that I just got hooked on because of Billy Blanks, That was so much fun. So, one of the things that always stood out to me, now first off, I've always looked slender, and people kind of like, you've always been slender. No, I work at it. I take care of myself. I went through fat phases in my life. Other people wouldn't consider me fat, but for me, it wasn't taking care of me, because I know my body and I know how it affected me mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Because you build confidence through exercise. Because when you exercise, you give yourself your own happy cocktail of hormones. You create all the endorphins you need to build confidence and courage. So if you want a sure way to do it, find what you enjoy to exercise, to move. It may be just dancing in your house to your favorite songs. All that fireworks going on outside. It's not my favorite time of the year. Poor Buddy would be freaking out. I actually dislike fireworks because of the way it affects the animals. And me, because I really just, I don't find them entertaining anymore. They're noisy. So we need, okay, so there's users and addiction. So we're going to go into this topic here. Again, we all, yes, dancing is the way to go. I love to dance. My mom, we all danced together. Like, that was a family thing. And it was fun. It's still fun. So we all have patterns. We all have forms of addiction. We have promoting and demoting addictions. So if you have a demoting addiction, meaning it affects not just your life, which is detrimental, but it affects the lives of people around you to the detriment. And everybody is struggling to deal with that. So what do we do when we have an addiction that is detrimental to us? It's demoting. We try to find something to replace it with that is promoting and uplifting. Because again, the root of all addiction means you've satisfied 3 of the 5 human needs. That you are being, and you're being enabled by others around you, meaning they let you just be. Nobody ever gives you that free feedback. Hi, Shakti. An addiction is something is to your, in the negative demoting way, is to your detriment. And it means you need to address the underlying reason why you're doing what you do. What you're gaining from it that you don't want to let go of. Sometimes it's just the simplicity of people give you attention for behaving badly. Or maybe you're still telling the same victimhood story, and so you don't even realize that people are kind of getting sick of it, that kind of thing. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The reason for addiction is because we're trying to numb the pain. But as I said, in what we teach in Beyond Addiction, when you numb the pain, you numb the joy. So if you're unwilling to recognize that the numbing out is an escapism, and that whatever is serving to protect you from what you perceive as pain, because it's not the addiction that's the problem, it's the fact that you're unwilling to feel the pain that you've been avoiding, that you run from the pain and try to cover up. Alcoholism, drugs, those are the biggest examples. But people, again, shopaholics, kleptomaniacs, gamblers, there's so many different forms of addiction that people just kind of like never stop to think about. Overeating, undereating, bulimia, anemia, the other one. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to recognize there's something you're avoiding, and it's usually pain. So when we numb the pain, we numb the joy, and then we chase the high because we can't get there if we're numbed out. And something to also recognize, when you are so deep in addiction, you may replace one addiction with another, but you may still have addictive behaviors that are to your detriment. Users use. Stop and sit with that one for a second. So if you feel you have something that is holding you back, question, what are you using? Substances, food, people. That's probably the least that people recognize. Narcissists are infamous for this. They use others to feed them, okay? A narcissist is a great example, and it can be anything from a subtle closet narcissist all the way up to a full-blown narcissist. And sometimes it's not that they're even really that full narcissist. It's just, again, these are coping mechanisms. These are survival tactics that when we're young and something in our formative years told us we weren't safe, so we had to find a way to feel in control or feel safe. The big one is usually, you know, with that kind of thing where you use other people, you feel like you have some sense of control. A lot of addiction is all about trying to have some semblance of control, but you don't, because you're out of control with whatever your addiction is. So users are interesting. So using addictive personalities, users will use others. But here's the click, here's the key in recognizing it. Remember, we're all mirrors for one another. We attract where we're at. Energy flows where attention goes. Where attention goes, energy flows. When you're a user and you use others, you manipulate to get your needs met, you will also find that you will also attract other users that reciprocate that using. So, as my friend says, self can get out of self. Yeah, for sure. So when a user is using another person, but then they go into their victimhood story of how others use them, the thing they're not noticing, they're not taking ownership of, is how they use. And that the only reason they're attracting the users is because they're dismissing their own behavior and how they use others. I have had to sit personally and recognize in the subtlest ways how I used to manipulate to get my way. I was a temper tantrum kid, didn't always work out for me, so it didn't become something that I carried through my adulthood. It's like my parents didn't always give in to the temper tantrums. I'm not saying that that was healthy either, but at the same time, anytime someone's throwing a temper tantrum, it's because they don't feel like their needs are getting met and they don't know how to communicate it well enough. So even if you're an adult and you maybe throw a fit because you didn't get your way, that in itself is a manipulation. It's an attempt to manipulate to get your way. Well, I'll withhold something in order for you to convince you should do what I asked you to or want you to. Yeah, those are users using. Yeah, we sometimes cry for, yeah, and I've done it. I've done it. And I've also seen when it didn't work, and I've seen when it did work. And I wasn't feeling the greatest about doing it either. When I look back, a lot of times I was like, ooh, that's icky. But we have to own our shit. Otherwise, if we don't own it, that's the driving factor. That's the one that's got the wheel. The stuff we're unwilling to look at is unconsciously running our lives. If we're unwilling to acknowledge our part in our victimhood, because believe it or not, a lot of times victims use their stories to manipulate to get their way. They want to be enabled. Oh, you poor thing. And that's usually what they're gaining, that they don't want to lose. They see how people fawn over them, right? And that's another, again, codependency. Fawning over a victim, oh my gosh, you poor thing, let me take care of you. And that person's like, oh, this works really, really well to get my needs filled. But there's always a point where somebody will come out and just flip out because they see what's being done. They recognize the unhealthiness of that behavior. I would rather own my ish than have others call it out like that. That's not fun either. And I've had that happen too. I've had both happen. So, boy, the fireworks are out already. But, and again, it's noticing those patterns that's the key to changing them. And until we catch ourselves, we might get caught up and called out by another. But I have been noticing You know, there, and I see the patterns, I see the behaviors, mostly because I am so sensitive to having witnessed and been a of it, whether it was me or having had it done to me, which was probably a reflection of me at some point. I mean, yes, a lot of us get taken advantage of, and we're like, well, how the hell did this happen? And then you go, shit, I allowed that. I tolerated that. And of course, the first person you're going to get upset with is yourself. And that's who you need to forgive the most, is forgive yourself. Until you forgive yourself, it's going to just fester, linger, create internal cancers. That's how that works. Because when you have a deep disgust toward yourself for a trust in another that in the end, really you shouldn't have trusted, but you were projecting that you wanted to be trusted onto them rather than acknowledging your untrustworthiness in the moment. So these are things that are like, ooh, there's another ouchie. I want to say I can trust other people, but if I don't trust myself, what makes me think I can trust another effectively and recognize the signs that say, red flag, don't trust this person. Because sometimes you don't want to see in them the ugliness of yourself. Or because you would want someone to treat you a certain way, you project that out on them. I've been having over-the-top positive reactions from others, which contradicts what your stepfather said of me. It's scary, don't know how to feel. Accept it with gratitude and say thank you. Learn to say thank you. Like, I appreciate you for saying that. Do you know how good that feels? Like, train yourself to really be in gratitude and speak it out loud. Because, again, we attract, we magnetize where we're at. And the more gratitude we have for people showing up and expressing and pointing out our beauty, our heart, recognizing and seeing us authentically, that's huge. That's beautiful. I love hearing that. So where victims choose and claim to be victims of their circumstance, let's say, there's still an unhealed aspect in them that they're not owning, and it's going to continue to attract those kinds of experiences as lessons to acknowledge that. Here's the key. It all begins within. You attract where you're at. So it's like, if you continue to tell a victimhood story, you continue to say, oh, woe is me, pity party, blah, 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 your energy is in that space to attract more of those experiences, to give you the lesson until you go, maybe I should really sit with this lesson and go, what are you trying to tell me? What is this lesson all about? Write it down. This is what has been occurring. What is the lesson in this experience? And then start to notice what comes out, because a lot of times you don't even realize some old memory pops and rears itself, and you're like, I forgot about that. It usually goes back to our childhood. Oh, I bet. You know, when we're younger, we don't usually have a filter unless someone has beaten it out of us. And depending on how strong-willed a person is, I know how I was growing up, a lot of times the youth has more wisdom than we give them credit for. I remember what my youth was like, and I remember being able to look at people and see their nature, and I could pick out not so great people and people that were great. But because of the conditioning, because of the environments I was exposed to, I started to doubt that. And so as a result, I ended up making some choices over the course of my life that made me start to distrust my choices. But it was because of the influences of the people around me that made me doubt my initial nature and my intuitive nature of trust. And that one is huge. That's awesome. Oh, he's only 5. He's only 5. I'll be 49 here shortly. I love that. So he's coming from Generation X, right? My sister's age. And I can tell you, I was just saying to somebody today, I said, we've seen it all. We've done a lot. We've seen the invention of the internet and everything coming up, and it's crazy that, for example, a lot of people don't want to work right now. But if they do want to work, they want to charge an arm and a leg. It doesn't mean they're the best at what they do. And that was what I was also saying as I was talking about fitness. Why would you go to a fitness instructor who doesn't embody health and fitness, who doesn't look healthy, that doesn't look fit? I mean, if you look at the world today, people want to turn around and say, well, that's not nice. It's a fact of life. Would you want a financial advisor advising you if they didn't have their finances together? Great example. No. You got to look at people and trust them where they're at. Don't just listen to their words. Look and see if their audio and their video or their talk and their walk are actually in sync. Are they in alignment? Are they doing what they claim? Do they embody their language? Can't figure out how the issue of not listening came about. Why didn't I listen to my parents when they told me not to do something? It's a natural rebellious thing that when we enter our adolescence, let's say teenage years especially, and this is actually something I learned during my Kundalini yoga training. You have lifestyles and life cycles. Teenagers are more wanting to be with their peers. They learn more around their peers. And so there's that little bit of a separation because they're still trying to figure themselves out. As teenagers, we were learning about ourselves and trying different things to navigate, how to communicate, how, again, going back to, well, what were some of the wounds from your formative years from 0 to the age of 6 or 7 that shaped some of your beliefs, your coping mechanisms, and your survival tactics? You have to look at all of that going up to the points of those rebellious ages, we'll say. We became rebellious because we wanted to explore and we didn't want to be inhibited. So teenagers, like I said, we're a lot wiser than we realize and that we're given credit for. And oh, first time you went against them was 5 or 6. Well, something might have happened. There might be a reason. And when we came in, I'll tell you right now, that's when we were still closest to source. So something in us knew. I was very rebellious with my mom. My mom and I would battle quite a bit, apparently, and I don't remember everything. My sister told me about conversations with my aunt, and my aunt said the same, said a couple things. Like, I remember I really loved my aunt, and I loved my cousin Danielle, and I was like, I want to live with them. And she brought me over there and said, go ahead, see if they'll take you. I mean, that was crushing, but I didn't know. I didn't know. We don't know. I thought they had a pretty good life. So, another thing is, so many people want others to respect their boundaries, but they really don't even have any. And yet, at the same time, a lot of these people, they don't respect other people's boundaries. They don't respect themselves first. You can't expect people to respect you or your boundaries if you're not respecting yourself or your need to demonstrate boundaries. And so, oh yeah, missing the school bus is an infamous one. I know, I've done that as well. I did that a lot. I'd be outside waiting for the school bus, and then I'd be like, oh shoot, I forgot something, and I run back in the house and the bus would keep on going. I'm like, oh no, I missed the bus. But the worst thing for our bus thing was when I lived in Maine, the bus picked us up first and dropped us off last. So we ended up spending like an hour on the bus going to school, which was right up the street, like a mile and a half, if that. and then having to wait another hour to come home because the bus did the opposite route. It would have been every once in a while the bus would change routes, but it was rare. And we ended up spending 2 hours on a bus. Come on, really? That's why I preferred to ride the bike half the time, unless it was raining and, having to carry a bunch of books and, well, anyway, a lot of that craziness. But I want you to recognize, if you're not being respected, it's about your boundaries. If you don't have boundaries, then there's a pretty good chance people aren't going to respect you. And I don't even like the word boundaries because I feel like that cages you in. I think more in terms of, what are your standards? What standard do you hold yourself to that you respect, that you honor? And also anticipate that through that honoring and that demonstration, that you hold others to it too. That's my definition of boundaries. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Valley. Malignant narcissist stepdad. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, I can only imagine. Hey, Derek, how are you doing? Long time no see, right? You know what? Make sure, just in case, please do me a favor and click the like on and the subscribe button. Like on the video, subscribe on my channel, click the notifications bell. I don't know if people are being unsubscribed, because that was happening. Every time I turn around, the numbers go up and then they drop down. The numbers go up and it drops down. So people are losing subscription to my channel. I don't know what's going on, algorithm, all that stuff. I know it's not just me, but please, it really helps me and the algorithm. The more you share, you like, you subscribe, you click the notification bell, because otherwise you won't know. And they changed do you notice the notifications? They show up according to what you watch the most. So you have to scroll down to find me, probably, if you're not consistent in watching. I don't really like the way it is anymore either, because it's not, it doesn't show up the way I like it for myself. And this is from people that I subscribe to. So going back to, again, the boundary stuff. We're all teachers and we're all students at all times. We're all saints, we're all sinners, we're all losers, and we're all winners. Like, really pay attention that the more conscious you are to your role in life, when you're being a teacher, when you're being a student, maybe you're doing both at the same time. It's an opportunity for you to recognize more of what it is you're learning. What's the lesson? The more you recognize that everything is a learning experience, that the people that are showing up to you are always teaching you something about you. Because life is about relationship, and the only way we can experience ourselves is through engaging with others. We can't engage with ourselves by ourselves and experience ourselves. It has to bounce off of. It's like the old saying, if a tree falls in a forest, does it make a noise? Not if nobody hears it. So, do you exist unless you engage with another person? That's a good one. I mean, we are creating our own reality. We are the stars of our own show. We are the producer. We are the writer. We are the director. And if we're engaging in life properly, then we can see how we're playing out all these roles at all times. And it's actually quite beautiful to see that dance, the energetic dance that we do with ourselves and others. Oh, you are okay. And you are perfectly as you are. And that's where love should always originate, with the authenticity of who you are, not trying to be what others want you to be. Because that is, again, going back to the foundations. In order to overcome limitations and build self-confidence, we have to stop doing what other people want us to do, tell us to do, expect us to do, or we feel obliged to do. Because if we keep on doing that, we're never going to find our happiness and our joy, because we're doing for others through our own life. That's not authentic to ourselves. Now, When you are living in your authenticity, in alignment with your integrity, knowing that this is my purpose, this is what I do. Oh, I appreciate that, Valley. I really do. I really do. And thank you. Thank you for letting me know that, because that means a lot to me to hear that. And I will be coming out soon with an announcement about what I'm trying to put forward, because I think it's really important that we have a community where we can come together and discuss and work together on each other. Like, that's what community is really about, reflecting ourselves to one another. Yeah. So again, like I said, I've just been noticing a lot of this, and it's just always a reminder from all the Beyond Addiction facilitation that I have done in the past. I've just noticed a lot of users that they don't recognize that they use others and then attract people that use them, and then they go into this martyr, well, I don't understand why I'm being used by this other person, but there, you gotta own your stuff. You gotta recognize that users use others, and if they're using you, it's probably because you're using them too. So there's a synchronicity, like we attract the same energy. Oh, I love seeing you all blossom in the comments like that. It's so sweet. Makes me happy. Happy full moon in Capricorn. Wow. And Capricorn. It's like, get on your trajectory. Stop playing small. So this is another one, I was really reflecting on this, and it's mostly because of the fact that I get so many people who reach out to me, and I love to give feedback and I love to share and help people, okay? But a lot of people are avoiding doing the inner work, and they're going outside of themselves to outsource, asking others how they should live their lives. But that's the definition of insanity, because that's not taking personal responsibility or accountability for yourself when you go, hey, what should I do? And 9 times out of 10, like I said in the beginning, people don't want the advice. They just want to tell the story and not really do anything. Well, I don't feel like it. Well, I don't want to do it. I hate to tell you, what you don't feel like doing, you will feel, because it will bubble up. The more you suppress it, the more you'll express it. The more you push it away, it will ricochet in your face. And I've experienced that time and time again. The more I've avoided something, the longer it lingered. The more I assumed that if I ignored it, it wasn't there, cognitive dissonance. Believe it or not, it's that ricochet, like I said. You push it away, it's like a force that's even more powerful when it does ricochet, because what people don't realize is the more you claim to not want something, the more you're really holding on to it. You're not letting go. You're not dealing with it. It is running the show. It's like a clinging on. You got a clinger. You got a clinger, and it's because of this. You think, I don't want it, but see, that's telling the story too. How many people are still telling the story, the victimhood story? And I, I can tell my story, write my book and everything else. It's not to be a victim. It's to release all that energy, to release that stuff. I no longer want to be that role. That was just a period of my various periods of my life that I had these experiences. And it's because of those experiences, it's brought me to this state, this point in my life where I see things as they are, as opposed to create a story around how I think or believe or want to believe, because most of the stories are because we want to believe the story, not really recognize the truth. And so when you've had certain experiences, you start to go, you know what? I'm accepting it as it was and not how I wanted it to be, because it is what it is, and it allowed me to be who I am today. It made me stronger, and it made me wiser. It made me more resilient, although at this point I'm in the stage of ease and grace. Universe, no more hard, tough lessons. I don't go there anymore. It's like, I see it, I call it out. Red flag. Oh, it's like the last video that I did when I was sharing about the strange actually, I think I shared the one where I got the emojis of the middle fingers, right? I got another one who I proceeded to say that I prefer to meet in person, and they got upset because they wanted to communicate on phone, and I didn't want to give my number. I said, well, if you want to communicate, we can communicate here on the app, because the app has the opportunity to do that. It even has a video chat, right? And then instead of seeing that, for whatever reason, this person has a bitter chip on their shoulder. And that was obvious to me, because I was like, the response that I got in that one was, it was something like, well, if you're not willing to talk on the phone, then there's a lot of things you're probably not willing to do, and like completely projecting a story onto who I am and what I would do, and good luck with finding a man you can run all over on, and blah blah blah. I was like, whoa, where did that come from? I didn't deserve that. I never demonstrated anything like that. But what it did show to me, and other friends didn't see what I saw, was that the person has a chip on their shoulder. And it was easier to reject me in such a negative light, instead of acknowledging what I had really said, like they were already in reaction mode. And I was like, wow, ooh, that's not even who I am, and I don't need to justify myself. But it is interesting, because what ends up happening is people don't see that they're still operating from their wounds. So that person clearly has a little bit more healing to do around whatever that is. And guess what? It saved me. That's how the universe protects me. Kind of sucks, but I get them right away, instead of having to go down, several months of my time and energy with somebody that ends up blowing up on me. So for me, it was like, well, thank you for blowing up at me and projecting your poison. That made it easier for me to see the red flag right there, right? So yeah, that you have to also see things differently than, well, they were bad and they taught, like I could play the victim and say, well, he was an asshole. You know what? He was just operating from his wound. He just made it easier for me to recognize, I know I don't deserve that. I didn't take it personal. I didn't make it personal. What's really sad is that not everybody can see that. They can see, like, I see it as the universe protecting me. That's how I see that. And it kind of made me like, oh, darn, there goes another one bites the dust, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I know you're protecting me. He wasn't meant to be. He's not the one, and that's okay. I would rather wait. I would rather have patience. God knows I've learned a lot of patience. Not always the best patience. I'm not the best patient either in patience. I prefer to be with the right one, not the one, right now. Just because, like, yeah, it's nice to practice to get to know someone. I'd like to have a couple guy friends. That's nice too. I actually find I meet people best when I'm traveling, or like when I was at the juice bar the other day, and I met this young man for the second time, and great conversations, like the stuff that I love to talk about. I'm like, I like it. This is nice. You enjoy your holiday. So yeah, I don't have time for sloppy leftovers, right? So, if you're not taking personal accountability and responsibility for your own life, what makes you think that someone else knows best for you? It's the same for those people who want to be the savior, that they will try to fix and help someone else. Those people are usually totally clueless about their own lives, but think that they can maintain a semblance of control over their own lives by helping others. See, that's a codependency. It's a martyrdom. Well, look at me. I'm helping. I'm taking care of someone else. Yeah, that's an addiction, because to put yourself in a position of, I'm the righteous one because I think of others first. You're doing it for significance. You're doing it to give the appearance. of doing the right thing doesn't necessarily mean that you're right, or that you're not doing something to manipulate also to get your needs met. Again, users using, right? Sometimes that's the case. They're using the person to get their needs met, or to get people to feel sorry for them too, right? So this is really what's wrong with the world, is people outsourcing their power and not recognizing it's up to you. You got to choose for you. Nobody wants to actually do the work and look at their own stuff. They want to ask others so they can avoid any responsibility for themselves, though they'll profess the opposite is true. The truth is, believe it or not, for as much as people claim they don't want to be told what to do, people actually want to be told, rather than trusting themselves and listening to their own intuition. Mostly because they don't trust themselves. And if you don't trust yourself, you're basically a sitting duck waiting to get shot. But this is the vicious cycle that when you don't trust yourself, what makes you think you can trust anyone outside of yourself? So again, you not trusting yourself, you not knowing yourself, makes you an easy target for narcissists, an easy target for people to manipulate, to run over. And believe it or not, everything starts with self. So if you don't work on yourself, that makes it more challenging in life. Once you recognize that everything starts with self, it's like recognizing the key to your power. And that's the bottom line. And that was the main theme about this whole wanting to do this video tonight, was that everything starts with you. And you are the clue. You are the key to your own happiness. So that when you recognize that it starts with you, then you can reclaim it, because that's your power. That is your choice, your superpower. That, wow, from this place, it starts with me. Why am I not choosing me? Why am I choosing others for me? Does that make sense? Is anybody resonating with that out there? That the more you are choosing you, instead of choosing others to do it for you. Because otherwise, you basically become enslaved to anybody and everybody you choose to outsource your power to. I don't know what to do. I need someone else to choose for me. We are not here to play small. We are not here to let other people rule over us. It is not our neighbors. It is not any cult of personalities governing the minds, governments, and such. It all comes down to, you are made in God's image. You have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of your own happiness. Even your neighbor has no power over that. And you shouldn't be choosing for your neighbor. Your neighbor shouldn't be choosing for you. Nobody should be telling you how to live your life. And that true freedom really means that you don't have to ask for permission or consult with anybody about how you live your life. And this is the thing that most people are waking up to right now. That is true freedom. But right now, what people think is freedom seems to be confined by many regulations, unlawful laws, wannabe aristocrats ruling when they're supposed to be representing. There's a huge difference. Things have gotten out of control. And the only way we will ever retain or regain control is by reclaiming ourselves, owning ourselves, and not letting it own the things that have happened to us, own or rule over us. And that's all I got to say about that. So that's my message for tonight. It's time to overcome the limitations and build our own self-confidence, because that's where we need to be in order to be free. Truly, unconditionally. Because freedom is a choice. And lately I'm noticing people aren't choosing it. They're not choosing themselves, so they're definitely not free. Whenever you outsource, you're giving it away for free. So happy celebrations, 4th of July, Independence Day. Our country's solar return here in the United States. Interesting times we're living in. All the things that are being turned against us are really all the things being projected toward us. Just remember, question everything. Question what you think you know. Question what people tell you. Question everything. Why? Because everything deserves to be questioned. Even you. When you think you know, sometimes maybe you don't. So I love you all. I really appreciate you. Sharing is caring. Remember to share this video. Click the like button. Subscribe. Click the notifications bell. And I will see you the next time. So much love from my heart to yours. Enjoy.